Okay, I have about like 9 minutes and a half to explain this. So, number one, purple. I'm going to gaslight you so hard into relating with this that you're going to want to relate to it. Well, not want to, but, Purple is under the delusional impression that he's in charge when, in my perspective, he sounds a lot like a stalker. Ignorant and cocky. He thinks just because he's stalking you that he's in full control of what you do. Now, in reality, the color purple usually means sexual frustration, but if we're going for the more appropriate version, it's a creative personality type, one that is compassionate and passionate, which means he is obsessed with the idea of friendship. He loves it so much that he'd steal it from others just to experience it. He'll kill you with love, because there's no better death than love. Well, that's a lie. He's actually very selfish. Now, you're probably wondering, what idiotically relatable metaphor can we adapt from an individual as mentally ill as this? Well, we all want friends. Nobody wants to die alone. Actually, no, I don't want friends. I'm fine with dying alone. Anyway, the lyrics here. I see you, you see me, everybody knows I run these streets, ending the first chorus with, I'm just looking for a friend. Purple's on the precipice, punishing the pessimist, pouring out the paint, I'm not prejudiced. Man, it feels really fun to kind of rap, I guess, if you're singing. Anyway, okay, think for a second, what does precipice mean? It's kind of like a cliff, so hanging off the cliff, this can be a reference to suicidal thoughts, wanting to jump off and delete your identity, or a reference to stalking. But I've never heard of anybody standing on the edge of a cliff to stalk their victim. So, suicidal thoughts. What is a pessimist? A very negative individual. Now, take suicidal thoughts and a highly negative person, and here, as the lyrics suggest, that he's punishing this pessimistic person while standing on the edge of the cliff. You are murdering your negative thoughts in a very psychologically unhealthy way, which means you consider negativity as a death threat. You would rather push down identifying negative thoughts rather than healing yourself through confrontation with these negative thoughts. Do not nurture them, but murdering them is only going to encourage you that bad things deserve to die and don't actually exist, which makes it kind of psychopathic, if not sociopathic. And then you have the audacity to claim you're not prejudiced. That actually spells out mental illness. You don't consider your wrath against your negative emotions as a negative emotion. Instead, you consider it as a necessity. Okay, I'm going to skip some lyrics, but trust my judgment. I know what I'm doing. Picking up the puzzle pieces, package up the pain, leaving panic on the brain. I'm painting up the wall so you can see that everybody needs a friend, even all the monsters underneath your bed. Demanding a solid relationship with another individual after just identifying himself as an incredibly violent one. He's very mentally ill, but hey, he's not wrong. The everybody needs a friend, even all the monsters underneath your bed. You can relate with that by identifying yourself as the villain, somebody who constantly harms others but also wants to have the opportunity to have a friend. He wants to be able to freely abuse his friends and still have them. Now, if you don't relate with that, good, because I'm pretty sure not even therapy or even all the pills in the world can fix someone who's that far gone. Alright, number 2, green. Who cannot relate with Green? In fact, Rocket's vocals make Green feel justified in his actions like he's a victim of society. I cannot specify this enough, but if I do not find vocals attractive, male vocals, okay, but male vocals, in general, they have to feel attractive to me in order for me to relax when listening to the song. I mean, I think most women are like that, right? Green is a particularly special song, in my opinion. It helped me cope with some anxiety I was having about being alone, and that's what music does, right? It makes you feel safe. Without further ado, this song is obviously based off Envy, I guess, because he's green. Scary, I'm lost in the head, bury me gone when I'm dead, lonely, I long for revenge, but I'm just a fraud in the end. These lyrics kind of emphasize on my personal feelings when it comes to friends. Lost in the head is a reference to having an inability to cope with human interaction. Lonely and longing for revenge means you blame others for being alone in the first place, but just a fraud in the end actually exposes the fact that you are fully aware of these negative impacts, yet it feels almost impossible to do anything about it. You try to control yourself, but these people can't even appreciate that. They don't understand how hard you're working just to be good, decent human being. A good, decent human being. I'm not excusing horrible behavior. What I'm excusing is the fact that there is internal rage that isn't directed towards trauma or anything that happened to you in specific. You're just a very poisonous person who can't seem to find the antidote for this illness. Anything bad that I do, I swear that I'll do it again and again. You are aware of when you get triggered, you have the capability of preventing yourself from doing something stupid, but you don't want to, because the revenge factor of these emotions feels so polished every time you do it. Yes, I'm definitely actually mentally ill, so I eat away the pain because my identity kills. Envy is like wrath in a way. Envy poisons your mental state into believing that the sickest of thoughts are justified because of how painful envy feels. That feeling burns inside of you like a grudge that shouldn't even exist in the first place. The feeling is more morbid than anything else. The person with envy suffers more than the person being envied, because this somewhat stable human is literally knocking down their own sanity because they are constantly justifying themselves for this envy, thinking that they deserve what you have. They need what you have. They deserve to be where you are because no reason in the world could actually justify envy. It's kind of sad. That's why the song matters a lot. The next lyrics are, I'm sick with something else. No physical feeling, dear mortal. This is the brain illness. In my personal opinion, the most sensitive thing humans have ever been able to possess is their brain. And the most relatable sentence in this whole song is close to the end. And for those who continue to suffer through this abuse, know that I want this to end too. Self-worth thrown out the window. You're utterly miserable, and there's nothing and no one that's going to be able to cure your pessimism other than purple. I'm just kidding. You yourself is going to have to psychologically dissect your own brain and start thinking up solutions. Or just get a hobby. Start thinking about isolating yourself from society and doing homeschooling and never going out to interact with other humans, because deep down inside you know you're too weak to keep the demon down because you're the one with the collar around your neck and he decides how long the chain gets to be. Alright, number 3, red. I don't know if red's going to be short enough for this video. Alright, I'll see where I get. This one is a little more complicated because it seems to me you would generally have to consider yourself a mess and a wrecking ball in relationships to be able to find yourself in the shoes of red songs, which is actually very relatable. Your delusional desires become your destiny and you start turning that into your work. You work with your delusions and only end up even more delusional because you're working with something that was never bound to work in the first place. You yourself can't find what makes you different, so you assume your insanity is sanity. But you think your delusions are intelligent, well thought out ideas. Your approach when it comes to others is to not approach them in the first place because you can't control yourself. Much like the rest of the Rainbow Friends, it kind of feels like Red is suffering from self-awareness, but his state of mind is more far gone than the ones before. He has no control over his environment. He can't prevent himself from abusing those around him because it's all part of his identity. His whole purpose is seeking to use you in some kind of way. So if you want to relate with this song a little more and want me to dissect the lyrics, consider this the section of the video where I'm going to get a little more confusing. I'll only be using the parts of the song that break away from the chorus. Testing, fill up the tubes with, every other color doesn't matter, I'll use it. His abusive persona can make use of anyone who crosses his path, much like the other two who also don't care which color or rather which friend crosses their path. Think back to when I was human, I couldn't make it, couldn't take it, couldn't take it, so I let go. I think so. Okay. Basically, thinking back to sanity, a controlled environment is your enemy. You can't focus under the pressure and expectation of others. Audiences leave when science mixes into this, a poor design, the flaws are mine, dilated all the time. The glorification of mental illness encourages your downward spiral, making you think that sanity is a realm of boredom that others wouldn't want to associate themselves with. All hands inside, nobody's fine when you're in my mind. Again, the glorification of mental illness is making you project your entertaining mental illness onto those who are not mentally ill. Because suddenly when an actually mentally ill person starts to behave that way in front of those who once thought it was cool, they want to run away and act like, well, that's not the same, you're just pretending to be crazy. Crazy people don't act like that. So you lose your temper and that's what happens. You fall further down Alice's rabbit hole and end up at the bottom of the barrel wondering what went wrong. Well, always remember to take your medication. I know the internet glorifies your schizophrenia or your bipolar disorder like it's some kind of superpower, but in reality, it's not. Mental illness is not interesting. It hurts, it discourages the experience of millions of very psychologically unstable people. Okay, that would be the end of the video. I'll continue the rest of the songs later since, this video isn't very long, but I hope you appreciated that.